Welcome to the walkthrough for Quiz 7B. Alright, so here we are, Quiz 7B. Notice these instructions are compatible with the Microsoft Windows operating system only. That means that if you're on a Mac, you'll have to use FSU's VLab or a friend's Windows machine or go to one of the libraries on campus. And also there are some alternate instructions. A lot of times there's more than one ways to do things on this quiz, so if one way doesn't work, just do the other way. So we got a starter file, which is basically just an empty file. Let me split the screen here, see if I can get the instructions and the file on the same page. Then there's also a resources file, which you have to download. It's also an Excel file with 2 tabs on it. So let's take a look at this file just to see a little bit about what we're doing today. So we have some insurance codes from a Courtyard Medical Plaza. There's dates, the maximum benefit, and then the amount actually billed. And we've got about 31 rows on this table. And then in 2020, we have about the same amount of rows over here. So rather than just copying and pasting this data into a spreadsheet and then making a table out of it, we're going to use the Power Query wizard. It's a very powerful tool that allows you to import data of all kinds of shapes, flavors, sizes, gracefully and in an organized manner into one Excel spreadsheet. Let's launch the Power Query wizard. And here we are. I'm going to move this sheet off to the side. So this pane could be defaulted so that it's invisible. So make sure you can see it by clicking that little left or right arrow next to the query wizard. Now let's go get some data. File source, Excel. And I think all my files are in my downloads directory. So there's my Courtyard Medical file. Connecting, yay. There's the data for 2019. And it looks like what we saw a couple minutes ago. So I'll click OK. And there it is. Now let's go and get the 2020 data. Same deal. Excel, click on the same file. It's a different tab in the same file. Click there. Hit OK. Now you'll see 2 different data sources up here. And you can click and confirm that you got the right data in the right sheet, just in case. Click back on the data 2019 data first. So let's get there. And now let's stick these 2 together in what's referred to as an append query. So we want to append these 2 chunks of data into one. So that's this icon here, append data, append queries as new. All right, so let's pick 2020 for the second one. Now we're going to append 2019 onto 2020. Notice there's another icon for 3 or more tables, but this is just 2, so we can just do that. Now we have this query called append 1, and it's also there on the upper left underneath the data 2020 table. So now I just have to click close and load. And I could close and load to a particular spot, but all I have to do is hit close and load, and it will stick all this data into the starter file. So see, sheet 2 is the 2019 data, sheet 3 is 2020 data, and sheet 4 is the combined or appended data from our Power Query. So we have to rename this sheet to append 1. And we need to make a pivot table out of this. There's a few ways to do it. Let me make it big here. Zoom in a little bit. So what I normally do is I'll just come in here and say Insert Pivot Table here on the Insert tab. But what they want you to do, and I think it gets it the same way either way, go over here to Summarize with Pivot Table. So click on that and just accept all the defaults, hit OK. And here we have a pivot table. So we want to analyze the the build value and the average of the build value for each of the service codes for this data. So like how much are we billing for each type of service that the dentist is providing? And what's the average of that value? So with your cursor in the pivot table itself, you get the pivot table fields over here on the right. And it asks you to take the service code down to rows. And the wording's kind of unclear, but it says to basically take the billing or the build value and take it down here twice. And the first time you drag it down there is called the sum of build, and the second time it's called sum of build 2. Identical data in both right now, but we're going to make one of them, while it's still the sum of the build, we're going to change the name of it because sum of build is kind of wonky. So let's call it total build. And then we want to change the number format to currency with 0 decimal places and hit OK. Now that's total build and it looks right up in our pivot table. So now let's change the second one to be average. So value field settings, average, got to change the name from average of build 2 to just average build. And then change the number format again to currency with 0 decimal places. It puts the dollar signs everywhere in here, and I'm not a big fan of that, but that's what they're asking for, so we'll humor them this time. Now notice here, we've got a D120 and a D0120, and the billing dates, or the total build values, are a little off, so I'm thinking this D120 is a typo in our data. So if I look at our data from our appended sheet, sure enough, there's one row down here that doesn't have the same number of digits as all the others. So I click that, but look here, it doesn't change in the pivot table, does it? Nothing changes because this pivot table is disconnected to the data. If you want to refresh it, if your underlying data needs to change, you have to come over here and refresh it. Refresh all, I usually do, or just click on this icon, and then it recalculates that and fixes it. So that's an important concept in pivot tables, that if your data changes, you have to refresh it in order to get it to work. Click on the banded columns, banded rows. We have these grand totals down here, and I want to turn those off. I can come up here and say off for rows and columns. Now I think we need to do a little formatting. I think they want us to put a special type of format here, light blue, medium style 6, that's it. That works for that. Now they want us to type some stuff up here in A1 and A2. I'll just show that as opposed to making you watch me type it out. That's painful enough. All right, change those to size 14. All right, let's make a pivot chart out of this, and I think it says to make it a combo chart. And that first one is what we want, and then drag it up to the cell indicated. I think it says E3 down to N25, I think. Yep. Now we want to insert a slicer for the insurance type. And they want us to drag that over to B10 and change the formatting of that to this dark one here, light blue, dark 5. Then select the comp dent one in the slicer, and there we go. So now I'll save it, close it, submit it, and run away with my 10 points. At least, hopefully, I'll run away with my 10 points. I've been working out of my downloads directory, so there's my file. Yes, submit it. And there we go. 21 out of 21. Okay, that's it for Quiz 7B. Now off to the video for Quiz 8. I'll be working on that next. Thanks a lot, everybody, and have a great day. Go Noles!